Ian is a weirdo. So I'm not going to be looking at the comments today. I just feel like I kind of need to maybe just like have a moment. Maybe I'll look at comments later. I don't know. But if you want to just come hang out with me and like listen to me vent, that's cool too. I I've not been doing well today. I was alright this morning, and then for me, I wanted to pre-record a video about mixed episodes with bipolar. Um, uh, and for me, like it was really surprisingly difficult to talk about it, and it put me in a pretty bad mood. And then I had a pretty bad like ARFID moment that kind of cemented this like negative and bad place that I was in. Um, so, uh, I just wanted to come and talk about it. Um, for me, it's important to talk things out, but at the same time, sometimes that shit can be like super triggering and whatnot. So, I'm outside. If you hear like birds and stuff, here in North Carolina, it's pretty warm. I have my jacket on because this is my smoking jacket, also my cold weather jacket. But in North Carolina, you never know what the weather is gonna be like. Um, but yeah, I had a pretty bad eating disorder moment um, today, and it's pretty difficult when those things flare up. I think mostly because like for me, they always seemed like normal. But now that I kind of have like a title to put to that experience, it just reminds me that like I have even more problems than I maybe initially thought I did. For those of you who don't know, I'm severely mentally ill, and it's been challenging to get that under control. And sometimes things get better, specifically with my ED. Like it's been getting a lot better, but with my gallbladder removal and everything, um, I've been trying to eat healthier, which means kind of being more conscious about the food I put in my body. But when I do that, I have to kind of look at what's in food, and that makes me very uncomfortable and kind of triggers um, this eating disorder shit. So it's hard to have that um, balance and make sure that I'm taking um, care of myself and trying not to get into a really bad place. But right now I'm in that really bad place, and uh, it's very challenging for me to get out of it. Um, I've been isolating more than I kind of have wanted to this year. My kind of ongoing goal is to be less isolating and want to um, reach out to people because I know a lot of my friends are either not mentally ill or they have, and this is not a contest by any means, but they have like significantly less like intense symptoms on the regular than I do. So, so I just, it's hard for me to talk about things without feeling just like an absolute crazy person, which, the shoe fits. Um, so as part of my kind of ritual for how I'm feeling when I feel this way. Tend to go buy a pack of cigarettes. I don't smoke really that much anymore, but when I want to need a cigarette, like this is part of my process when I'm feeling like this. I usually smoke a cigarette to kind of calm my nervous system down, and then I'll take my emergency medicine to kind of get that under control. And usually it just makes me sleep it off, which works more times than it doesn't, but it does have the potential to swing me into a more negative place. And I'm already in a pretty negative place, so I get a little nervous about taking that emergency medication, even though it's prescribed and I do use it from time to time. I don't know if you can hear it. There's a school or something, some kind of truck of some sort or bus of some sort. Um, for me, like, it's really important for me to discuss. I've talked about how important I feel it is to talk about my issues because I know I'm not alone in dealing with them. But all of these things combined, especially, make you feel particularly alone. And, for me, that's like, that's the challenge, right? Is like to not, to realize that I'm not dealing with it alone. And I know a lot of people deal with mental illness or physical illness, and it just has a way of making you feel like there's no way out. Um, welcome in. I'm not going to be turning on the chat. I'm not even looking at the chat, so you're welcome to say whatever you want in the chat, pretty much. But for me, it's kind of important for me to not have any kind of interference with my thoughts because I don't really want any suggestions on like how to feel better, if that makes sense. And it's not so much me being defiant to getting better as it is most of the suggestions that I get tend to be things that I've already tried that don't necessarily work for me or stuff like that. So I'm not trying to be like defiant and like not respond to people's well wishes and like help. It's just that I've done a lot of shit and it's really hard to get out of this space. So for me, I'm just gonna try to get through this, a step at a time and not be too absolutely cruel to myself. And that's pretty challenging because like my default is to be very hard on myself. Um, and I in dealing with all this, I YouTube is a really helpful resource for me because I am able to connect with people virtually that do offer great advice and support me and help me. Um, but at the same time, being so exposed, you get a lot of people that don't necessarily understand the intricacies of what I'm going through. Which is fine, not everyone has to be an expert on every single illness I have to be, um, that was a trash truck, in case you're wondering. Um, and, I think that it's very, easy to be like, just go for a walk and reset your brain and stuff like that. But for me, like, that just actually brings a lot more anxiety into my life than what I do experience. A lot of people think that if you push through a lot of these symptoms and you just kind of, that's a plane. If you push through these symptoms, then you'll get out of it. And sometimes it works, but more times than not, it just generally makes me feel worse. Welcome in. I won't be checking the chat. You're welcome to say whatever you want in the chat. But but I won't be checking it because I don't really want any advice right now. Um, for me, like it can be very dangerous to not take my mental health seriously, and like very, very dangerous, especially with bipolar. Bipolar is one of those things that, like, like can kill you if you're not careful with it, right? So I can't play around and do stuff. I can't necessarily afford to do practices that might make it worse, which is a lot of things, And I think I've been in a mixed episode maybe for the past like 3 days. And I know like a couple days ago, I posted a video, I did a live, and I was pretty vulnerable about how I was feeling. And, I just kind of was having like a little bit of a nervous breakdown. And I ended up deleting it. So no, you won't be able to look for it. But for me, it's very difficult to, I don't know. A lot of people, their exposure to a lot of the things that I have are kind of based on either generally more mild mental illnesses or like stuff that they've seen on TV. And, with any mental illness, people experience it totally different across the spectrum of who has that mental illness. Just like with physical illness, it's like, okay, well, someone might have a hurt leg, and their recommendation from the doctor would be like, well, try to keep moving, try to walk on it, stuff like that. And some people might have a hurt leg, and the doctor's advice is don't walk on it, give it some rest, stuff like that. So it's kind of like in that vein where mental health is like so broad and so complicated at times that you have to be really careful about how you treat things. I have an appointment with my psychiatrist next week. I have an appointment with a new top surgeon next week. I have a family medicine appointment to hopefully get my testosterone back on track, which I'm really looking forward to. But like in full transparency, like, I've had to take time and contact places that are a little bit more familiar with how to deal with things that I'm going through. Like I had to contact like the 988 crisis line, which is, I believe it's only in the U.S., but it's a free service that basically hooks you up with someone who you can just talk through things with and kind of vent, and then give some suggestions. But generally, it's more like just support and letting you vent. I know this isn't like, I know it's not the perfect solution for all situations, but for me, when I'm feeling this bad, it kind of is like one of the only things that I can talk about. So, yeah, I just, I hate feeling like this. I hate feeling so hopeless and out of control in my own life and in the way that my life and my illnesses impact other people. It's very hard to watch someone you love deal with mental illness or physical illness, and when you feel totally powerless in that situation. I think a lot of the people around me are feeling pretty powerless, and I try to be mindful about what I put on them because I don't want anyone to take responsibility for my brain chemistry when, like, I'm having a hard enough time going through. And here comes the trash truck. Hello. It's about to get real noisy. I apologize. Maybe not that noisy, but noisy to me. I'm gonna check the chat real quick to see kind of what's up with folks. Wait, I got to 1K. That's that's news. Okay. How do I scroll on my phone? It's often abrasive. Yeah, absolutely. Went to the post office saying, hey, Winter, hey, Lydia. Thank you all for coming in. I guess with 1K, I need to do my giveaway for my clover hooks. I'll do another video on that, but if I got to 1K, then um, I will, check that out and do whatever. Um, so, you might see me smoking a cigarette and be like, wow, that's a really unhealthy coping mechanism. And you're not wrong, but for me, it's also about like the lesser of evils, right? So like when you're dealing with things that you only know how to deal with poor coping mechanisms, sometimes you have to pick the lesser of the evils, and that's how you deal with it. So, so yeah, I think that I'm really hoping disability comes through. I don't know if that'll. I mean, I guess I'll feel better at least temporarily because it is something that I really want and really need, right? Like it's not like if I don't get disability, it's not like I can just fucking like, okay, I'm gonna start working now. That's not my situation at all. And I've posted like videos before. People are like, get a job, and it's like I'm disabled. Like you don't realize like what that kind of shit says to me when I would rather be working. Like I'm like one of those like odd ducks where like I would rather be working and be able to function in society, but like I cannot. Like so it is very challenging. Um So I just want to kind of put that out there. Um, I know I have a lot of support here on YouTube, and those are the types of things that I don't take for granted, and why I reach out like this and when I'm in a place like this, because like I feel a lot of love from you all. I consider you all part of my family, definitely chosen family, right? And I think that that's something that you know, I wouldn't say that I take for granted, but I think it's easy to forget. Um, there's this phenomenon in borderline called splitting. And I think that a lot of people fall into this trap, even if you don't have borderline. But it's kind of when like everything is very black and white, good or bad. And it's really easy to get into a spot where you only focus on the bad. So it's really easy for me to forget that I have this awesome support system here online when I am feeling this low. Um, and I don't know why sometimes being vulnerable just makes me feel worse. Um, I think it serves as a reminder of how difficult to treat a lot of my illnesses are. And I get very hopeless feeling. I talked with one of my friends who I've stayed in contact with from my treatment in Boston, and he is like, we're kind of in a similar boat where we have very different diagnoses, but like we kind of can't see a future where we're not in and out of treatment all the time and constantly changing meds and dealing with the side effects of those medications or having them not work and all of that stuff. So for me, like it's been really nice to keep in contact with him, but like sometimes, and we're really there to support each other. Like I've talked about this friend multiple times because he's such a good um and like strong supporter of mine, and will literally be like, if I'm saying some bullshit, like it's never gonna get any better. Everything's terrible. Everything's bad. He'll be like, dude, just shut up. Like, shut up. And, listen to what I'm saying. This is how it's going to go. And that's the kind of friend and kind of therapist I need. I need someone who will willingly like rip me out of that situation and be like, no, like your thinking is wrong. Sometimes I'm okay with that. For me, those people are people that I have to have a whole lot of trust in. Um, and not to say that I don't trust like a lot of the people. Welcome in. I won't be checking the chat very often because I'm going through a really hard time with my mental health, and it's really challenging for me to get some unsolicited or even solicited advice because a lot of the things that people suggest I've tried and haven't worked. So I really like have to be careful about what I read when I'm like really sensitive like this. And I hate being sensitive and vulnerable, but it's important for me to be you know kind of positive ish source of um I don't know. It's important for me to be like positive for like folks, or not even positive but realistic, like realistic with the side effects and that I experience with medications and my symptoms that I experience because of my illnesses, because no matter how potentially unique my situation is, there are other people going through really similar things. And I don't want those people to feel alone like I do, but at the same time, sometimes it's like that old like adage of like you can't pour from an empty cup. Like for me, like I like helping people, I like offering advice and tools that I've learned along the way, but it's really hard for me to take those tools and apply them to myself, you know what I mean? Um, so one of the things that's really holding me back from treatment, if I'm being perfectly honest, is my top surgery. You know, you kind of have to abide by like a certain set of rules and treatment options when you're awaiting surgery because they're like, oh, well, you can become, suicidal or something after the surgery. And I'm like, yes, but I'm also experiencing that before surgery, and I probably always will to some level. So I don't see an option where that will ever change. So it's really hard for me to seek treatment when I know that like some of that treatment will impact my medical care in the future. And not that everyone who doesn't experience gender dysphoria can relate to this, but like when people are like, well, just wait, push it off, like for me, like this is a permanent condition. And unfortunately, like kind of like with severity levels, like I was talking about earlier, I would say that my severity level prior to 2019 was manageable, and there were aspects that weren't as manageable that I didn't catch up on as quickly. But like then I got my concussion in September of 2019, and for some reason it was a very mild concussion. Um, I didn't have like like a severe incident that caused the concussion, but and a lot of the studies that have been done correlating the severity of mental health conditions and traumatic brain injuries or TBIs has been done with severe concussions. So there's not a lot of information out there on like mild concussions and their effects um, on mental health. But since I got that concussion, I have actually experienced a severe and significant increase in my symptoms, and I pretty much can't go like 6 months without some form of like heavy duty treatment for those symptoms. And it kind of feels like this is my life now, where I'm always going to be this level of sick, this level of um, just kind of, mentally ill where I can't I can't function like a normal human being, and that's really discouraging. I know a lot of people who have long-term chronic illnesses um, feel that discouragement, of like feeling like you'll never be able to. There's a fucking hornet or something. Luckily, it flew right past me because I was like, what? A little slow on the uptake here. But for me, what was I saying? It just feels kind of like a little bit of a death sentence, if I'm being honest. And I know people can tell me all day long that, like, it's like, it's not a death sentence. Like, you'll survive. Just keep doing it day by day. And, I've been to enough 12-step meetings to know that, it's like one day at a time, 1 second at a time, 1 minute at a time. And I like understand that to a certain degree, but I don't feel that in my heart. I feel like this is just going to be my constant from now on. And it's very discouraging. And if you have a significant illness, you may have experienced similar thoughts where you're just like, well, if this is my life now and it's not, things aren't good, then like why do I keep trying to give a shit? Um, you know, I don't know. Um it's a very challenging thing, right? So for me, I'm trying to work through it the best way I can, which is using not the best coping mechanisms, but coping mechanisms that like work enough to kind of help me slide through the next period of my life. Um, and like in the video, I haven't posted it yet, so I don't even know if I'm gonna post it because it was very um, hard for me to record it, right? So I don't know if I'm even gonna, you know, I don't know if I'm even gonna post it. Um, but whenever I feel the worst, it generally tends to be around times when I experience mixed episodes because mixed episodes are so complicated and you feel so mentally and physically uncomfortable that it just doesn't seem like you can survive that feeling, right? So I'm not trying to be a downer. I'm not trying to be super negative. I'm just trying to be honest about what I'm feeling, and trying to use the resources that I do have to, just get through them. Um, you know, it's 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 very easy to isolate for me and for a lot of people because there's so few people that understand exactly what you're going through that when you're trying to describe your experience to them, it's so shocking to a lot of people that they literally can't fathom that type of experience. And it's not like just to blame them or whatever, but it's just a very difficult situation. And I think a lot of people in my situation feel the way I'm feeling. So it's nice to know I'm not alone. But, I remember one time I was a lot younger. I think I had just been maybe diagnosed, and I immediately viewed it as a death sentence, right? And my severity was a lot less than, I mean, untreated bipolar looks way different than treated bipolar. Even when the meds aren't great, like it's still way different, right? And so I remember my older sister saying something, and she was very like, she was just trying to be helpful, right? And she was like, I feel like you just need some bipolar people to look up to and see how they're thriving. And so I started to try to look for people with the same condition as me, maybe not the same severity level as me, but the same condition as me or conditions. and see if I could find someone who was thriving and use that as a tool to be more hopeful. But then when I did that, it just kind of doubled down on all of the feelings that I was feeling about feeling like it was a death sentence, because literally everyone I had to look up to had, attempts on their life or, something like that. And, and they weren't functioning well, they weren't doing well. And so for me, it's really hard to find people to look around and see people that have the same thing going on and be like, oh, things are going to be okay. Because even if they're doing okay at that moment, they're talking about other moments when it hasn't been okay. And, oftentimes I've looked up to celebrities, or I've like looked into like celebrities who've dealt with this, or I meet people in treatment. And if someone's in treatment, obviously, like, they're not doing great, right? Like, you don't go to treatment because you're feeling awesome and you're not, fucking up your life in a big way. And so it's hard for me to look at those people and be like, oh, great, now I have hope, because that's just not what it is. And, it's, I don't know, it's a very strange experience. This isn't something, and I don't think anyone plans to be chronically ill, right? Uh, no one short of people that are born with like some kind of congenital issue, or like issue that they're diagnosed with like very, very, very early on, have the opportunity to live a normal life and then have that all ripped away from them, and now they can no longer function, right? So for me, it's been just really hard to relate, and find hope in my diagnoses, and you know, not feel like it's going to be the breaking point for relationships that I have, for my own psyche, for all of that. So yeah, I just kind of I don't know. It's challenging for sure, and I want to be more hopeful. I don't want to sit here and be like, wah, 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 like nobody. That's not fun to listen to, but at the same time, it's an honest view of my experience, and I have to be honest with myself at the very least. I don't have to share everything I'm going through. There's a lot of people in the public eye or on YouTube or whatever who you would never know were struggling with these issues, right? And uh, you know, and that's fair. Like, they're allowed to keep their private life private. And there are some things that I do not talk about on any form of social media, or even with a lot of my friends, because I feel like it's a very private issue. But um, for some reason, when it comes to a lot of the things I deal with my mental health and stuff like that, I feel like honesty is kind of the only way I know how to deal with it, because I had to learn very early on that if I wasn't honest with my experience, that no one even had a chance of understanding what I was going through. And that led to a lot of suffering for me and a lot of suffering for the people around me, because they were like, I don't know what's wrong, you're just upset and I can't help you. And it's like, well, I don't really know how to communicate that, like, my brain's just not, my brain chemistry is just not working today, or like whatever, right? Or like I'm dealing with these issues or this trauma, and I don't know how to communicate that to you. Also, I found it very difficult to talk about my trauma with people who were my primary abusers, even if they're in a very different place right now. And I don't personally think that my primary abusers knew that they were doing what they were doing to me, because like everyone can experience um, the same exact what was I saying? Oh, everyone can experience. The thing with trauma is like everyone can experience, the same exact series of events, right? And not everyone can come out of that with PTSD or something like that, or with a trauma response, right? So it's sometimes very hard for me to communicate with people who've gone through the same thing that I have, but don't experience PTSD from it, or their manifestation of PTSD is very different from mine, because it sometimes just doesn't connect, and it feels like I'm blaming people rather than trying to own up to an experience I had, and and uh, and just be transparent with my experience. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm trying to do it without calling anyone out, without blaming like my abusers or people who went through the same thing that I did and didn't come out on the other side with the same trauma I did. Because just the thing, like I said, is like you can experience the exact same thing and maybe not come out with the same results. I do think that I'm especially vulnerable to the effects that trauma can have on you because I'm such a highly sensitive person. And I know sometimes I don't always show it, like sometimes I'm a lot more tough than I feel or am. And it's not a performance, it's not a show. I'm not trying to put on a brave face so that people don't think that I have any problems or anything like that. It's more so like I just like I I I don't know, like sometimes I am tougher, but sometimes I'm very, very sensitive, and literally like the slightest turning of words, right? The exchange of words can push me into a place where I wasn't prepared. Can like push you into the deep end, and you were not prepared for that, right? Like you were not ready for someone to say something or do something that pushed you into a very traumatic experience. And unfortunately, I had kind of an experience like that today where I was already kind of in a foul mood. I was very sensitive, and I love Mel with all my heart, with everything I have. But she said something and it triggered me. She didn't mean to trigger me. It wasn't on purpose. She wasn't trying to put me in that place. She didn't even realize that what she was saying could potentially put me in that place, but for whatever reason it did, right? And so, there's a book on borderline, but I think it applies to a lot of conditions, right? And the book is called Walking on Eggshells, and it's like how to, deal with people basically with borderline, right? Because with borderline, so the big difference between bipolar and borderline is that uh, bipolar is generally categorized by extended periods of high mood shifts, right? And so, you'll be depressed for a couple weeks, you'll be manic for a week, and then you'll go back to baseline, or you'll be depressed again, or whatever. And so, borderline is more categorized by very intense emotions that cycle very rapidly, that kind of can seem to kind of come out of nowhere. It's not that they come out of nowhere, but it very much feels like that for the person experiencing it and for the people around them who are dealing with the repercussions of what was said or done or whatever, right? So when you're ill, you don't want to make the people that you love have to walk on eggshells, right? It's a very hard thing to come to terms with when you feel very out of control of your emotions, but you're hurting people. Um, but it was just kind of unfortunate timing in my mental headspace about how I was going to deal with um, things, um, and for me that's been very challenging. So I don't know. I really, I got on here because I needed my friends, but I also needed to not hear any feedback, which is a weird place to be in. But those friends who like you have maybe not solely for this purpose, but they're definitely outlets for this purpose of being able to just vent to them and have them just listen to you. And that's kind of where I'm at, where I know I have my friends here, and I just need someone to listen, and I need to kind of talk things out. And that's the thing about talk therapy that a lot of people, I think, when they're new to it, they don't necessarily understand. The purpose is not for someone to tell you how to fix it, it's for someone to provoke a thought in you generally, like under like the cognitive behavioral therapy method, someone to say like, hey, what tools do you have to get through this experience and make you think about what's going on? So you get it all out, and sometimes when you get things out, it kind of a light bulb goes off, and you're like, shit, like I didn't even think about how this affected me or how, this thing in my past, related to this reaction that I'm having. So, yeah, I mean, so I guess that's where I'm at right now. It's more like a vent session, and you know, um, I appreciate all of you. Whether you're tuning into the live or you're watching the replay, or even if you're just there for me in general as a supportive network. I'm forever grateful for those people, even if I don't always recognize that they're there, right? Um, it's very easy when you're in this like zone of negativity that like literally nothing someone can say can change how you're feeling, and that's kind of where I'm at. Where it's like I don't need someone to come in and doctor me. Well, I mean, I probably could use a doctor right now, but like I don't need a non-professional to come in and try to fix me or doctor me. I need someone who can just like listen to me talk about what's been going on in my brain and let me just kind of get it all out in a place that's safe and supportive. And who would have thought that YouTube would ever be a place of safe and supportive networks? But it really is for me. And even like kind of coming to terms with like there's people who are more I guess fair weather folks, where you know what I mean, where it's like they're around for the good times, but once they see that you're struggling, they're like, I don't know what to do, and it frustrates them, so they don't want to put a lot of energy into that friendship because they themselves are frustrated with their inability to help you get through that. And I understand that. There's no problem with kind of having to say, hey, I need to take a step back from this person because their negativity or their experience is really fucking with my head. There's no problem with that. So yeah, so no blame on that particular response. Um, but yeah, it's it's hard. I want to be better. I want to be better for me. I want to be better for the people around me. I want to be better for my friends. But right now it's not necessarily that. So, um, it is what it is, I guess. But, maybe this is the time for me to go look through my, um, you know, journals and things that I've used in therapy and kind of comb through different skills that I can use. And then also, using my medication as it was prescribed to me, and not being ashamed of it. I think it's, like I said, I have to be really careful about which knobs I turn and how high I turn them at specific times. Welcome in. Just kind of venting today, but I won't have my chat on. I'm not reading the comments. You're welcome to leave a comment, but I probably won't read it. Just a heads up because I just kind of need this space to vent. about kind of how bad my mental health is right now. Um, so I just want to, for anyone out there who's experiencing a similar thing, I'm very sorry that you're experiencing that. And, you know, with all my heart, I wish I could change that experience for other people. And I often give a lot more credit and effort into helping other people than I do myself because I feel pretty much like a lost cause at this point. And I don't know, it's just really difficult to turn that advice that you would give to a friend in the exact same situation and turn that in on yourself, right? At least for me. Maybe some other people have an easier time with it, but for me, it's very, very difficult because I just don't truly believe that I'm worth it, and no amount of um, no amount of telling me that I am worth it would ever change how I feel about it. You know what I mean? I've got to figure that out for myself, but how I just kind of can't get past that wall. Um, And so I have these really strong core beliefs that I'm trying to tackle that really, really come up when I'm in this kind of place. So just know that I am reaching out for help and trying to kind of negotiate how I get through these periods of time um, with with this these mental illnesses that I'm going through. Um, I don't know if I have much more to say. Let me check the comments and just kind of see. Let's go back from the post office. Lydia says, "Hi, Winter." That's great. I love you all supporting each other. Um, but yeah, so I want to say it's not hopeless. It's not terrible. And for any one of my friends who is going through a similar experience, it would be so easy and automatic for me to say to them, right? It's like you want to support your friends. So you're like, you can get through this. It's just a moment. Feelings pass. Feelings are temporary. You can come back around, blah, blah, blah. But then when that same situation applies to you, you're like, nah, it's permanent. I'm always going to be like this. So, I just want to thank all the people around me, both physically and virtually, for being a great support system for me. I really do appreciate it. Um, but this is like a journey and it's going to be a constant journey, right? Some days are going to be better than others, but it's really a journey of trying to figure out what works for me in that moment, in that headspace, and that fix changes from time to time. That that what works on one bad day won't work for all bad days. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna try to take my medicine and get some sleep. I'm gonna take a shower. Try to kind of rinse off the feelings that I have. Be more mindful. Take care of my body the best that I can, and try not to continue feeling as hopeless as I do right now. Like I've said a million times before, I really do just appreciate the ears that you are lending me, right? Those are very important for me, and they are you know and sometimes a lot of process is just yourself how to to get them be mind of um, face that you'll always be. Thank you for listening. I really, um, hopefully we can, be on to better days. Really appreciate it. Um, and I have concerns about my safety because if something bad does happen, know how to get help. I'm just being due to the fact and also, I know that treatment and how many good I feel when I'm in treatment is present when I'm out of treatment, and I can't live those conditions blocking out the rest of the world when people that I need to connect with outside of that world. If you've been in treatment, especially if you've been into it multiple times, I was talking to my friend about this, that like it's so addicting to be in treatment. It's I described it as like intoxicating to be around people that don't make you feel like you are a freak or like you are so unusual and unfixable, because you see people around you start to get better, and or dealing with similar or different things that you can kind of relate to and apply to your own situation. And you know, that's just kind of the meat and potatoes of it. So yeah. So I will talk to you all later. Thank you for listening, and I hope you all have a great day. I'm gonna try to have one myself. So I love you all very much, and I'll talk to you later.